You're never going to believe this. It's only been 2 months since I released my video covering the best hearing aids of 2025. And three of the big six hearing aid manufacturers have released new hearing aids in that time. I just can't keep up, and I imagine it's hard for you too. Well, not wanting to let you guys down, I've put together an updated version so that your finger is on the pulse when it comes to new hearing aid technology. So my YouTube community, let's get to it. I am delighted to share that my audiology practice is fully independent, meaning that I have the pick of the bunch when it comes to recommending hearing aids to anybody that visits my clinic. Therefore, I have a ton of hands-on experience with every hearing aid out there. And today I'm going to run through a feature showdown to help you to figure out which is the best for you. So if you're looking at either upgrading your hearing aids or buying hearing aids for the first time, then you should have all the information that you need for when you next visit your audiologist. There is no shortage of the styles of hearing aids out there, ranging from the likes of the Phonak Lyric, which is Phonak's extended wear hearing aid that's left in your ear for between 2 to 3 months at a time, to custom hearing aids which neatly sit inside your ear, to the receiving canal style which sits behind your ear with a wire that feeds energy to your ear canal, and then finally the behind the ear hearing aids which sit behind your ear and are coupled with a thin tube or standard ear mold. So I am particularly keen on knowing what you're wearing. Let me rephrase that, which style of hearing aid you're wearing. In a recent poll that I put out there in the world of YouTube, 61% of you wear a receiver and canal style of hearing aid, which happens to be the style loaded with the most amount of technology. And so it therefore makes sense to make this style the subject of today's video. But not only that, I want to delve a little bit deeper this year. Pinned at the top of the comments to this video, I've also added 10 features that I'd like you to rank with your hearing aid, so that I can get a real flavour of how you personally get on with your tech, ranging from the likes of the build quality to battery life to speech clarity and speech understanding in noise, etc. We've also done this exercise over on the Hearing Tracker website, and I would love to be able to compare notes with you at home. It seems sensible to start by physically comparing 2025's newest hearing aids, and then I'll run through all of their individual features. So, for the purposes of today's video, I'll be covering the Oticon Intent, Phonak Infinio, the Starkey Edge AI, the Widex Allure, the Signia IX, and then ReSound's Vivia hearing aids. So kicking off with Oticon, this is their Intent Mini Right, which is currently Oticon's only hearing aid available on their latest platform. Then we have the Phonak Audeo Infinio, which is available in two models, the Audeo Infinio R and the Audeo Sphere Infinio R. Next, Starkey have a wider selection to choose from in their Edge AI family of hearing aids, which includes 3 different receiver and canal models from the MRIC R, RIC RT, and the RIC 312. Widex have a single hearing aid on their Allure platform, the RIC RD. The ReSound Vivia is the newest family of hearing aids that I'll be covering today, which was released in February 2025 and is available in 3 models. Firstly, the Vivia RIE 312, then we have the Vivia RIE 13, and finally the Vivia Micro RIE. And then finally, but by no means least, Signia have 4 receiver and canal hearing aids within their IX family, including the Pure Charge and Go, Pure Charge and Go TIX, the Pure Charge and Go BC-TIX, and finally the Stiletto IX. Of course, I'll break down and compare all of the individual features shortly, but if one of your main drivers is cosmetics and you ask me to rank my top hearing aids based on this alone, then the ReSound Vivia RIE is the smallest receiver and canal hearing aid available, followed by the Starkey MRIC R, the Phonak Audeo Infinio, and then the Widex Allure. However, I personally think that it would be a terrible idea to choose a hearing aid based on how it looks, as the discretion of these hearing aids can come at a cost, and there are certain features that are missing in all of these hearing aids, which I'll expand upon throughout the rest of today's video. If on the other hand you're interested in this new wave of fashionable hearing aids, designed for you to show off rather than to hide, then Signia have the Stiletto available in their latest platform. It's also worth noting that Phonak have their Phonak Slim and Widex have their Smart RIC, but they're not available in their latest platform. So you'd be taking a step backwards in terms of technology if you were to go down that path, which I personally would not recommend based on the awesome new technology that's crammed into all of these new hearing aids. Now, as far as colours go, in all honesty, there are far more interesting things to talk about today while I'm talking about the best hearing aids of 2025. So I've decided not to waste both my or your time discussing the colours for each individual hearing aid manufacturer, as they're all pretty similar and they all offer a broad range matching all skin and hair tones. And in my opinion, there isn't one specific manufacturer that stands out over and above the others. I would personally recommend, based on what most of my patients choose, to select a hearing aid that best matches your hair colour. Now, I want to make sure I've taken the right approach here, so if you do think there's value in me going through the colours individually for each manufacturer, then drop me some feedback in the comments beneath this video. In fact, while I'm at it, or while you're at it, if there's anything you think that I've missed from today's video, or any specific questions that you might have, then type it in the comments and I'll try my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Each hearing aid make and model has its own individual fitting range, which is essentially the level of hearing loss that it's capable of dealing with. And if you're thinking, well, I'll just get the most powerful hearing aid out there so that it will last as long as possible, you're right to an extent. But in some instances, a more powerful hearing aid does require a more powerful speaker. And the more powerful the speaker, the bigger it is. So again, if discretion is the most important thing for you, then selecting the correct power level is essential. On top of that, the power of the speaker also affects its frequency response too, with more powerful speakers tending to provide less high frequency gain. So it's important, very important in my opinion, that the power level is just right for you and your hearing loss. If you ask me, one of the many reasons that the receiver and canal style of hearing aids are the best out there is because their speakers are fully interchangeable, making them suitable for varying degrees of hearing loss. And so if your hearing happens to change, then you won't necessarily need to look at new tech in the future, as the hearing aid can be physically adapted to meet your needs. So the following images outline the fitting ranges for each individual manufacturer and some of their individual hearing aids too. And if your hearing loss falls within the shaded area on each of these graphs, then they're technically suitable for you. Firstly, we have the Oticon Intent and its various receiver powers. Then we have Phonak's Infinio fitting ranges, and you'll notice here a unique receiver called the MAV, which stands for Active Vent, which I'll come on to shortly. And then we have the Starkey Edge AI fitting ranges. Next, the Widex Alert, which currently only allows for an S and an M receiver power level. Moving on, we have the fitting ranges for Signia's IX family of hearing aids. And then last, but by no means least, you'll see the ReSound Vivia fitting ranges. And similarly to Phonak, ReSound also have a specialist receiver called Marie, which has some unique properties that deserve their own special mention next. Phonak's Active Vent is without question my favourite unique receiver technology, which has been around for a few generations of hearing aids now, and I'd recommend that you stick around as you'll like what this thing does. Within the custom mould, there is a built-in moving piston that changes its position depending on your listening environment, allowing either more or less sound to be diverted naturally via your ear canal or on the contrary via the hearing aids. In turn, this can enhance how clearly you'll hear, it will enhance how well you hear in noise, how your voice sounds, and how music or calls sound when they're being streamed from your phone. Now, if you're wondering why this matters, there are both positives and negatives to having your ear canals either open or closed, and depending on your hearing loss, sometimes it's beneficial to have a hearing aid that can do both on different occasions, which until Active Vent was released by Phonak, this wasn't possible. For example, in a quiet environment, you might want the vent to be open, allowing all sound in and out, giving you a nice natural feeling, connecting you with your environment. Yet, when you're in noise, it's better to have your ears completely closed so that all of the sound that you're hearing is via your hearing aids, maximizing their ability to remove background noise. If you think about it, if there's any noise traveling down your ear canals which hasn't been through the hearing aid and processed by the hearing aid, then it won't have been cleaned up and it won't have had any of the noise reduction capabilities applied. Now, to highlight the impact that it has on music, when streaming is activated from your phone, Active Vent will close, blocking sound both in and out, enhancing music and giving it a greater depth and richness. Alternatively, ReSound have their own unique receiver technology called Marie, which stands for microphone and receiver in ear, and is the only receiver technology available that has an extra microphone sitting at the entrance of your ear canal. ReSound boasts that by having this extra microphone in the ear, this allows the hearing aid to take into account the shape and size of your personal anatomy, which will have a significant impact on the sound, giving you a more immersive hearing experience with greater depth. and also sense of spatial awareness. This microphone is automatically enabled in a quiet environment when you want to hear everything that's going on around you. And then when the hearing aids detect any degree of background noise, let's say in a restaurant for example, this additional microphone switches off and then the directional microphones on the hearing aids kick in, giving you the most effective speech understanding and background noise that ReSound can produce. As a result, ReSound claims that this improves sound localization by around 15% when compared to omnidirectional BTE microphones, and around 10% when compared to hearing aids that provide pinna compensation. Now, I will say that from my experience in clinic, both of these unique receivers are more prone to feedback compared to conventional receivers. So when I fit them, I am incredibly selective about the patients that I fit them to. However, if you have a mild to moderate hearing loss, then they could be a fantastic option for you. It's worth noting that all receiver and canal hearing aids can be physically customized to suit your anatomy and the configuration of your hearing loss, using a selection of either rubber domes or with a custom-made ear mold, with the mold involving your audiologist taking an impression of your ear and producing something like this, which sits on the speaker end of your hearing aid. The selection of the tip for the end of your hearing aid is really down to the expertise of your audiologist to recommend the most appropriate setup for you. But at the same time, I would encourage you to take a particular interest in this part of today's video, as, believe it or not, if this part of your hearing aid isn't right, then your hearing aids will not function as well as they should do. It's easy to think that the tip is just about comfort, but there is way more than that to think about when choosing the right setup for you. For example, it can affect both the clarity and the sharpness that your hearing aid provides. It can affect how full and rich it sounds, how good it sounds when streaming from your phone, and most importantly for all of you, how well it copes in background noise. Now, I'm not saying that it happens often, but the easiest option for both you and your audiologist is to fit you with a generic rubber tip. And as a result, I've had plenty of patients land in my clinic with hearing aids from other practices that haven't been working well, and all I've needed to do, just one simple change, was make a custom mold, perform real ear measurements, and sprinkle on a little magic, and that has transformed the tech into a brand new set of hearing aids. So if I were you and being fitted with a hearing aid, I would ask your audiologist if custom tips are suitable for you, as I do personally try and fit them on as many hearing aids as possible where suitable. Now guys, if you've made it this far into the video, then come on, admit it, you're learning something, right? And I haven't even started on some of these incredible hearing aid features just yet. So press that like button, and while you're at it, you should probably subscribe too, because you definitely want my videos reviewing all new hearing aid technology to appear on your YouTube home screen, don't you? So as you can tell from the fitting ranges of these hearing aids, all of them are pretty similar. So unless you have more of a severe to profound hearing loss, all of today's hearing aids could technically be suitable for you. When it comes to controlling hearing aids, some of my patients like the ability to be able to adjust their settings, and others don't like to make any adjustments whatsoever. Each hearing aid manufacturer has their own way of allowing you to make adjustments to the setting, which I've split into two groups for you today. Firstly, physically, and then secondly, via each manufacturer's respective app. There are 4 different categories for physical adjustments. Bear with me because it's worth learning about. This first group, which I personally feel are the most versatile and is therefore my favorite group, all have a rocker switch built in, meaning that there are technically 2 buttons on each hearing aid. Being soft keys, this means that their functions can be changed for your needs, such as being set up with a volume control or mute function. They can be used to change programs, such as connecting to a loop system, your TV, or maybe even a restaurant mode. Plus, the buttons can also be used for answering or hanging up on phone calls. The second group of hearing aids have a single button, which will still give you some degree of adjustability using the hearing aids themselves, but in my opinion, it's a little bit more fiddly. And what I mean by that is instead of having a volume up and down on each hearing aid, the right hearing aid button will turn the hearing aid's volume up, and the left hearing aid button turns both hearing aids down. Other than that, the functionality is pretty similar. On top of those, group number 3 has a pretty cool tap control feature, which is a spin-off of the accelerometers built into these hearing aids, which I'll cover in more detail later on when I'm talking about how these hearing aids automatically adapt their settings based on your movement. But from a user control point of view, the following hearing aids allow you to answer or decline phone calls by tapping your ear. Plus, the Phonak Infinios take this one step further, and you can even activate Siri or Google Assist without needing to take your phone out of your pocket. Whilst this isn't something that all of my patients use, those that do absolutely love it. Now, the downside of adjusting your hearing aids using the buttons on the back of them is it can clearly be a little bit fiddly. And whilst your hearing aids will beep in your ears to notify you of any changes that you've made, it isn't the same as being able to see what you're doing on your phone. This is why changing the hearing aid settings using each manufacturer's individual app has been a game changer in the world of audiology. Plus, it gives you access to a ton of other features which isn't possible just using a button or two. Now again, my plan isn't to go into too much detail on the apps today, as to be honest, they're all pretty similar. And I know it's going to be a lengthy video already. But if I had to choose my two favourite apps, I would hands down recommend both Phonak's My Phonak app and the ReSound Smart 3D app, as they're the most reliable, user-friendly and intuitive. Plus, they give you access to a ton of other useful controls which you don't find in other hearing aid apps. It's also worth me noting that whilst the Widex RIC10 doesn't have built-in Bluetooth, which I'll be covering shortly, it does allow you to make basic adjustments using their Widex ToneLink app, which communicates with your hearing aid using an ultra-high frequency sound. Every hearing aid that I'm covering today has an IP68 water resistance rating, meaning that they can technically be submerged in 1.5 meters of water for 30 minutes and they should still function afterwards. Now, this isn't just a rating reserved for hearing aids, you'll also find it in the likes of your smartphone that you're possibly watching me on right now. Saying that, there are two manufacturers, both Phonak and Starkey, who have been tested to the limits to ensure that they can cope with the hammering that hearing aids are likely to get on a daily basis. With robustness testing, which includes the likes of a simulated sweat test, seawater testing, saltwater testing, chlorinated water testing, and of course freshwater testing, which has been performed in a pressurized chamber. Phonak are boasting that they've added additional microphone protection, they've sealed the seams with silicone, and they've coated the components with a paraline coating, which I'm actually told is the same protection system that NASA use on their spacecraft. On the other hand, Starkey's Pro 8 HydroShield waterproofing involves a Kevlar reinforced receiver, which is actually used in the military to make bulletproof vests. They've redesigned the acoustic ports, they've added an internal microphone mesh barrier and a silicone seal of the casing, and also specially coated all of the internal components too. So the big question is, does this really matter? Well, I would say that for the majority of you watching, the standard IP68 rating will be sufficient for your needs. However, if you live a lifestyle that requires the next level of protection, then one of those two models may be the right hearing aid for you. I think you've gathered by now that in my reviews, I uniquely like to group the technology according to their functions. And when it comes to batteries, that is no exception. So there are three groups when it comes to batteries and rechargeability today. Firstly, we have those that use disposable batteries, and it may surprise you to learn that the battery life isn't determined by the hearing aid, but more by the size of the battery itself, with smaller batteries needing changing more often. These hearing aids use a size 312 battery, which will last anything from around 5 to 7 days. And then finally, there's the unique ReSound Vivia RE13, which is the only hearing aid using a disposable size 13 battery that I'm covering today, which should last you from 7 to 10 days before it needs changing. According to a recent poll that I put out there on YouTube, the majority of you watching use rechargeable hearing aids rather than disposable batteries. And again, I can split rechargeability into two different groups. Firstly, those that will provide around 24 hours of life, which has rightly been the industry standard since rechargeability came onto the scene. And then secondly, we have a group of rechargeable hearing aids, such as those from Signia and Widex, in which you can get up to 35 hours per 3-hour charge, with Starkey boasting a whopping 51 hours of charge. Now, in my opinion, these hearing aids were not built with an extended battery life so that you can go partying in Cancun for 3 days without the need to sleep. But believe it or not, it's because the lithium-ion batteries in general, which is the same chemistry that's in your phone, your laptop, etc., are known over time to deteriorate in health, which means that after a few years, a full charge may not last you for a full day. Now, whilst this doesn't matter so much with a laptop or a phone, if your hearing aid battery stops lasting for a full day, then you're in a bit of trouble. So the advantage of some of the newer releases means that in the future, if the health of the battery does start to decline, they should still last you for a full waking day. So as far as batteries go, the patients that prefer disposable batteries are those that tend to travel a lot and don't want to have to remember to carry their chargers with them, or those that tend to like the security of carrying batteries around with them instead. With rechargeable batteries, yes, there are differences in the overall life of the batteries of these hearing aids, but I personally don't feel that this is a reason to choose one manufacturer over another, as long as they will last you for a full working day. If they don't last a full day over time, most manufacturers are pretty good now, and if your batteries do start to deteriorate, they'll replace them under the warranty. If you have had any issues with this, let me know in the comments and I'll send them a strongly worded email for you. Now, not only are there various models of these hearing aids available, but each also comes in different technology levels too, each with differing features around the hearing aid's ability to cope in background noise, around how they'll provide you with clarity and distinction, and also around how they'll cope in more complicated listening situations. Now, keep in mind that you'll pay more for a more advanced hearing technology level, and prices can vary depending on the audiologist that you see. This table compares the different features in the various technology levels of the Oticon Intent. These are the differing features within the family of Phonak Infinio hearing aids. Here are all of the differences between the Starkey Edge AI hearing aids. Next, this table shows the various features that you'd have access to in the Widex Allure family of hearing aids. The penultimate table outlines the features in each of ReSound's Vivia family of hearing aids. And then finally, this table contains all of the information that you need to know about the features within the Signia IX hearing aids. Yes, I get it. There is a lot of information on each of these tables, and there is way too much information to cover in today's video without making it 14 hours long. And I've got to be honest now, I don't think I can keep up this level of enthusiasm for as long as it would take to cover them all. But I would suggest taking a solid look through each of these tables, looking at the features that resonate with you, and then having a good chat with your audiologist about its suitability for your hearing loss and your hearing difficulties. Now, that nicely brings me on to the subject of audiologists, and I've got to say to you, to make sure you get the best out of your ears, I am begging you to make sure that you find yourself an independent audiologist who has access to hearing aids from all hearing aid manufacturers. Why do I say this? Well, most chains, in fact all chains, and a few independent practices only work with a handful of hearing aid manufacturers. And in that instance, you're not necessarily going to be recommended what's best for you, but whichever hearing aid technology they have access to or personally get the best deal on. Not that it's the best comparison, but would you buy a TV from a shop that only sold one brand? Or would you want to go to a store where they could recommend the best for your needs from all manufacturers? Bluetooth is pretty much an industry standard nowadays when it comes to hearing aids, meaning that you can stream phone calls, music, and the radio or podcasts directly to both of your hearing aids. Plus, as I mentioned before, each manufacturer's app allows you to make manual adjustments to the settings on your hearing aids. But of course, it isn't as simple as that now, is it? Believe it or not, there are in fact different types of Bluetooth too, with pros and cons around the different protocols used. So as far as connectivity goes, I've divided the best hearing aids of 2025 into 5 different categories. Firstly, we have those that use classic Bluetooth, which was previously Phonak until Signia joined the party earlier on this year, with the main advantage of classic Bluetooth being that they can connect to any technology with Bluetooth streaming capabilities. It doesn't matter if it's old or new, smartphone or otherwise, and it will even work with any landline phone that has built-in Bluetooth, unlike any other hearing aid manufacturers. The second group of today's hearing aids utilize LE audio, which was the original way that hearing aids connected to iPhones back in 2010 and is a low energy form of Bluetooth. Now, this method works well, however, there are a couple of limitations. For example, iPhone users can benefit from bidirectional Bluetooth, but that feature doesn't work with Android devices. In addition to that, there are also some limitations on which phones will allow Bluetooth streaming features. Group number 3 are the most recent releases from Signia, ReSound, Oticon, Starkey, Phonak and Widex, who all have the newest version of LE audio, which makes them all Auracast ready. Now, if you haven't come across Auracast, it is the future of connectivity, allowing for public venues to stream any sound with a higher quality and lower battery consumption directly to your hearing aids, such as announcements in a train station, football commentary, or church sermons. Now, whilst this is built into these hearing aids, few of them have activated the feature, as there are so few transmitters installed around the world that, from my understanding, the manufacturers are keen on doing a lot more testing to ensure that it works well before it's activated using a simple and free firmware update. Building on that, we have connectivity category number 4. Until LE Audio and Auracast technology takes off, you'll still be able to access the loop system, which is essentially the 20th century version of LE Audio, and allows for the streaming of sound in a public venue directly to your hearing aids. All hearing aid manufacturers, apart from Phonak and Widex, have at least one model that has a built-in telecoil. Now, the only downside is that with some manufacturers you may need to sacrifice rechargeability for the use of that telecoil. So there is no question that there are plenty of options when it comes to connectivity, and honestly, after having it installed in your hearing aids, it's the kind of technology that you don't realise you need until you've tried it. So don't underestimate how useful it is. It's also worth me noting that oddly, the smartphone that you own can have an impact on the features that you get from your hearing aids, with iPhones being the most versatile. So as you're doing your research, each hearing aid manufacturer has a compatibility list on their website showing which phones are compatible with their hearing aids. So I'd recommend checking out those lists separately or speaking with your audiologist to see which features you'll specifically have access to. So guys, there are a ton of features that I could expand upon when talking about sound quality today. However, today instead, I'm going to focus on each manufacturer's standout features and their pros and cons. I do, however, have individual reviews for each hearing aid discussed today, which I'll link in the description to today's video. So I've got to kick off with AI. Now, both Phonak, Oticon, Starkey and ReSound utilise a form of offline artificial intelligence within their hearing aids, meaning that they have trained them to categorise the environment that you're in and accurately decide upon the most appropriate setting for you in that particular moment in time. With Oticon claiming that their hearing aids are trained from 12 million sound scenes, ReSound 13 million, Phonak 22 million, and then Starkey claiming that their tech is making up to 80 million adjustments per hour. So there's clearly some pretty powerful computational power going on inside these little powerhouses, ensuring that you're being delivered the right sound for your hearing loss and environment. Not only that, but the hearing aids are then designed when they know which situation you're in to focus on the person that's in front of you and reduce and attenuate the sounds that you don't want to be hearing. Now, I don't want you to just take my word for it, and certainly not the word of the manufacturers, who all speak a bit of nonsense in my opinion, on how well their hearing aid technology works in background noise. Instead, I have various sound files from the HearAdvisor Independent Hearing Aid Testing Lab, which allows for the comparison of hearing aids using a standardized test battery. And as a result, I have various sound files to play for you today, comparing how each of these hearing aids sounds in quiet versus how well they work for speech understanding in background noise. So, get your popcorn ready and let's take a listen.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have got me a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe next year.
Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have got me a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe next year.
Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have got me a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this this year may be the year.
Trees, bushes, decks. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard work. My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year may be the year.
Trees, bushes, decks. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year may be the year.
Trees, bushes, decks. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
Did you hear the news last night?
No, I must have missed it.
Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend.
Oh yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work.
Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill.
Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy.
I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year may be the year.
Trees, bushes, decks. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
So tell me what you think. Let me know in the comments which you felt worked best for speech understanding and noise, the holy grail when it comes to hearing aids. And if hearing in background noise is a big challenge for you, you may want to be looking at these results as a reference for your next pair of hearing aids. Now it's worth me mentioning that other manufacturers such as Widex and Signia also use artificial intelligence within their hearing aids, however in quite a different way. Both manufacturers allow you to make adjustments to your hearing aids via their apps, and then the changes that you make are compared to thousands of other hearing aid users for similar environments, with the hearing aids then adjusting the settings accordingly. If you ask me, the only downside to this form of AI being built into hearing aids is that it requires your input, and the majority of people that I see would rather let the hearing aids do everything as automatically as possible. Working alongside its artificial intelligence, both Oticon, Phonak, Starkey and Signia utilise accelerometers or motion sensors in their hearing aids. Now, this concept isn't new in itself, with Signia first introducing motion sensors in their tech in 2019, Phonak in 2020, Starkey in 2023, and then Oticon finally joined the party in 2024. If you're sat there thinking to yourself, why on earth would a hearing aid have built-in motion sensors? That's a fair enough question to ask, and hold on tight because you're going to love this. Essentially, they provide information to your hearing aids based on your movement, anticipating in greater accuracy the specific needs for your listening situation. In practice, this means that if you're sat down in a restaurant, you'd normally want to hear the person speaking in front of you and perhaps a little to the side too. However, as soon as you stand up and start walking, we would normally want to be able to hear the person by our side as we're walking along, as it's unlikely that you'll have somebody walking in front of you and walking backwards. The motion sensors help the hearing aids to recognise that and to adjust themselves accordingly. Whilst this is only available with both Oticon, Phonak, Starkey and Signia, some manufacturers only include this feature in their rechargeable models. So, in my opinion, this should be another factor which pushes you towards rechargeable hearing aids. Now, one last point on these motion sensors. And if you're thinking, Matthew, your review is fantastic, however, you've missed out ReSound's hearing aids. You're right, I have. But they're solely used as a tap control feature for answering and hanging up phone calls. Like so. They've got nothing to do with improving hearing in different listening situations. In my opinion, the world of hearing aids is an incredibly difficult one to navigate. You'll see different reviews online which have hearing aid users conflicting one another, and to be honest, when it comes down to sound quality, in my opinion, online reviews can be pretty useless. Other people's hearing won't be the same as yours, they won't have the same challenges as you, and remember, hearing aids come as a blank canvas, and it's the role of your audiologist to A, choose the most appropriate hearing aid technology for you, and B, which is way more important, to set them up appropriately for you using gold standards. One thing that can help you with your decision-making process is the work that we've done at Hearing Tracker, objectively comparing the latest hearing aids. And if you head over to our website, you'll be able to compare the latest data with a ton of information to help you to decide which hearing aid to buy. But before you do that, you've got to check out these two videos, which are full reviews on a couple of the hearing aids that I've just spoken about.